Senate File 82 is a bill in front of you to help very small school districts around the state that are facing an issue that most do not want to deal with, but when we look at the situation economically, these very small school districts just are not viable by themselves anymore, and they've begun negotiations of consolidating school districts, and we saw a wave of that a number of years back. But one of the things that's really standing in their way is the costs involved with doing that. Remodeling of a school to incorporate one school becoming, say, the high school and another becoming elementary school. So simply put, Senate File 82 is looking at increasing the funds that we give to schools when they consolidate. And it would be an increase in the first year. Currently, we give them $200 per student. This would increase it to $424. In the second year, they get $100 per student. This would increase it to $212. And Madam Chair, with that, I will turn it over to my testifiers to explain the need for this increased funding.
My name is Mary Carlson, and I have the privilege of serving the Renshaw Board of Education as their school board chair. I am also a mother to a 7- and 3-year-old, a business owner, and a farmer. I am honored to be here today alongside of Carleton's board chair, Laura, and members of our board. Renshaw and Carleton surround beautiful Jay Cook State Park, just 30 minutes south of Duluth. Renshaw is a kindergarten through 12th grade school serving 343 students. Yes, that's 343 total students. Senator, I heard you ask or say that you haven't heard members of boards sitting up here and saying, please stop the unfunded mandates. I'll say it. Because in rural Minnesota, unfunded mandates are not just a matter of budget cuts, they are going to close schools, which are the heartbeats of our rural communities. I want to thank this committee for hearing from us today and for the inflation-adjusted increase on the per-pupil formula work that was done for this year. Despite this inflationary adjustment, districts around the state are facing massive budget cuts. Rural districts like Carleton and Renshaw serve low-income and farming communities. We are extra vulnerable to the rising costs of providing education, declining birth rates, and online educational alternatives that keep students out of our schools. Renshaw is currently facing, with the current budget forecast that we are being provided by the state, a 5% cut in our overall budget. Carleton is facing a 10% budget cut. When you only have one section per grade, I have one kindergarten class, all the way through 12th grade, a part-time superintendent, a part-time shared athletic director, and a single K-12 principal, there is very little left to cut. Transparently, we'd be looking at our career and technical education and our media specialists. Our CTE program feeds the manufacturing communities in Carleton County. We cannot cut that program. That leaves us 3 other options. Number 1, asking for a referendum. Number 2, close the school and send our students into other districts. Or number 3, consolidate. The first option, asking for an operating referendum, has been repeatedly attempted in our districts to keep the school appropriately funded. They have failed for many reasons, but they are particularly hard to sell in our district because 44% of our secondary students fall below the poverty line. Closing the district would mean closing the heartbeat of our community. We do not have a single stoplight in Renshaw. Our school is where our community gathers to celebrate. It is where our residents literally seek shelter from severe weather and where many of our students find consistent food. Losing our school is not an option. That leaves us with consolidation. Thankfully, we have a partner in Carleton. While our district would be small, serving only 600 students, it would allow for both of our communities to keep a school open in our community. Our students already play sports together, so it's time to get our districts aligned through consolidation. The issue is that consolidations are both expensive and very complicated. Carleton has a building that needs to be sold or demolished. Recent projects that have demolished buildings of similar size have cost over $600,000 just to take the building down. Renshaw has classrooms that will need to be transitioned from elementary to high school, and there will be additional staff time simply transitioning us from 3 buildings to 2. When we started thinking about consolidation, we started doing our research and discovered that consolidation aid has not been updated in the state of Minnesota since 1994. The U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics estimates that education costs have ballooned 333% since then. We aren't asking for that much. Senate File 82 asks that Minnesota statute update to be reflective of regular inflation at 212%. The aid would be raised from $200 to $424 per resident pupil unit in the first year of consolidation, and from $100 to $212 for the second year. Encouraging schools to consolidate is a great way for the state to ensure that education dollars are being spent primarily on our students by cutting administrative costs and eliminating old, rundown buildings. In Renshaw and Carleton, hopefully one day known as Jay Cook's schools, we will be able to cut administrative costs in half, and we will be able to eliminate a building. Please support Senate File 82, as doing so supports rural and small districts around the state that need to find a creative path forward for our students.
So I'm going to speak on behalf of Senate File 82 today. As Mary mentioned, my name is Laura Nielsen, and I serve as the Carleton Board Chair. I graduated in 2004 from Carleton. I've lived in the district my whole entire life. My 2 stepchildren attended and graduated. My 3 current little ones attend Carleton, and I have been an advocate of our community for many, many years. I'd like to speak on behalf of the opportunity to better Carleton and Renshaw communities. Take a moment and consider the state of education is heading in Minnesota. Current legislation, our political uncertainties, and most importantly, as mentioned many times today, the economic hardships our constituents are in fear of facing. The superior question we pose is, how can this bill support more than just Carleton and Renshaw school districts moving forward with the idea of consolidation? SF 82 can support all rural school districts' ability to be more creative, innovative, and strategic. Education, like everything else, continues to get more and more expensive, yet funding and support continues to decrease. If we can't work towards education goals to support Carleton Renshaw, how will our future workforce and economic growth not be affected in just our towns, but throughout the state? As Mary had mentioned, our CTE local programs, which are in Renshaw, Carleton cut ours years ago, and are bare bones. When I say bare bones, we have nothing. No art, no gym, no CTE, nothing. So what we do is we work with Renshaw in the best ways possible and community education programs and colleges to support those students in that. Trades and manufacturing, in my job, I'm a career counselor in workforce development, are 2 very big areas of workforce in our region. And not only that, but across the state of Minnesota. And if you look at statistics and understand workforce development moving forward, the manufacturing and trades folks who need to be replaced are because of the baby boomers retiring, and it's only increasing the amount of workforce that we need. And right now, we aren't able to support that. If we can't work towards education goals to support Carleton Renshaw, how will that affect future growth? Carleton Renshaw can be the pioneers of change, ready to step up and take this challenge, accept the barriers and obstacles, and endure the uncertain promise for stability and growth. We are not alone. Small districts, rural districts across Minnesota are in the same predicament of funding issues we are experiencing. We need incentives to accept change and make those tough decisions. Consolidation is a tough decision. It is a good decision, but it is tough. Every district has an identity, and to move that pendulum and give that identity up is a tough decision. Pride is important. The inflationary adjustment in Senate File 82 will support the budget and allow us to think creatively and make those positive impacts for our communities. How do we as board members of rural districts embrace this? By thinking bigger, stronger, and outside of the norms, while remembering we are serving students and families who have chose the small district school life. At this juncture, current funding will not allow our 2 small districts to survive. We need additional funding for strategic future planning and fostering the next generation of workforce and taxpayers. Minnesota needs rural schools to teach the generation of farmers and skilled workers through CTE and agricultural programming. Carleton and Renshaw will never be in the same position again with this great group of people, supportive board members, in this time, in our moment, fighting for our Carleton and Renshaw students. It can be done. We are asking the Senate of Minnesota to come alongside us to ease the burden of consolidation, not just for our communities, but for all districts preparing to start thinking creatively to serve students in the strongest way for success. We are going to strive for perfection as our standard, fall short because of our mistakes. We are human, but succeed for every Carleton, Renshaw, and Minnesota student. But without changes to funding, we cannot take the leap of faith we need to succeed. Please join us on taking our students forward.